Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Remember that when we do 3 shantis in this class or wherever that is, it's not just a mechanical 3 times shanti. There's a reason for that. The first shanti is asking for removal or help of removal of any obstacles that are universal. So this means that suppose that there is a future event that we're not aware of yet. And when it does occur, then it's going to require all of our time to attend to it. So this means we now have to back away from spiritual works. So we're just asking, help me to get through this all the way. Let me not be stopped halfway by these universal obstacles. And the second one is we're asking for the help of removal of environmental factors. This means factors which, like family situation or friends, or someone pulls us into a very enticing offer, or we kind of get enticed by entertainment, and then we sort of kind of slowly fade away from our track. Okay, you know how it is. It slowly becomes more justifiable why this new thing in my life is it, and why I should put that away. It's always like that. And the third is to ask for a removal or help of those obstacles which are personal. For example, sickness or coughing, anything like that. It seems innocent, but then, what if it escalates so much that we find ourselves unable to attend, and then we don't hear one of the most important things that we're supposed to hear if we did attend. The first one was universal, and the second one was environmental, and then the third is personal. So it goes like this. We spoke about 2 types of devotion: Sakama Bhakti and Nishkama Bhakti. Okay? And Sakama Bhakti, we can draw something like a dollar sign that implies material. And we'll just draw like a little stock market increase. So this denotes I want to improve myself. I want to become better, and I want to have some position in life, be someone important. I want to contribute to the world. This is also dharma, okay? Anything that increases one's impact for the better, and that is also Sakama Bhakti. And Nishkama Bhakti, remember the second type of devotion, will draw like a sun, and the sun denotes the only one principle being the nature of the highest, that means God. So Sakama and Nishkama. Sakama has many options, because there's many things that we can have for our life. And Nishkama can only be one. So the question now is, what causes the person to go from Sakama to Nishkama? What is this converting aspect? What happens in between? Give me some ideas. What causes us to go from materialism?
Detachment?
Well, this is early stages. They're not thinking these words yet, remember. They're not advanced. They're just ordinary citizens.
Not feeling satisfied.
Okay, I like that. So unsatisfied, yep.
Searching for something more.
Searching for more, yeah, this searching for more.
Sickness. Realizing there's nothing to be gained.
Yeah, realizing there's nothing in what you mean seeking or what I'm looking for? Realizing.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So of course that's like searching for more also. But to search for more, I have to first realize that there is something more to search for. Okay. So the conversion process, mini realizations. And what is the result, the ultimate result that we can put all of these suggestions, what can we put it under? There's one big cause. And that cause is that the person starts to see the world is neither the cause of sorrow nor of happiness. That's the generalization that we can put all of these suggestions under. Okay, at the beginning, there seems to be this rebellious attitude. You know, like I'm a rebellion. The world's over there and I'm over here. If this happens, do know this is normal. Because at the beginning, there has to be some kind of an aversion. If there is no aversion, there's no motivation to look for something higher. Okay? So this aversion may or may not be on a certain intensity. But just remember this, if this aversion continues, then that becomes a potential problem. Because then we're now putting the world, categorizing it as one, and we're putting spirituality as the other. So eventually they have to merge together. Okay, so keep note of that. So I start to realize that the world is neither the cause of sorrow nor of happiness. Then what is the cause of sorrow and happiness? Okay, because to realize one thing, you have to then subtly realize another thing. Is that not true? You can't just realize one thing. It has to be supplemented by something else. What is that? I've realized the cause is not the world, but what else have I realized?
That there's something else.
So it has to be within me.
Yeah, in me, did you say?
In me, yeah.
Yeah, so this me at this point, we don't, we're not talking like the self. We're saying in my mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the attitude. So we start to see that the cause is not in the world, Africa, Australia, Russia. Okay, that's the world. The cause is ultimately in my mind. Now, what is the foundation for this realization? Because remember, even if you do have a lot of possessions, a lot of success in life, then why is it that we can never settle down with what we have? Why can we never say, okay, this is enough. I've got enough money in bank. I have enough position. I'm a big enough celebrity. I don't have to be a bigger celebrity anymore. Why do we don't stop? Because no matter how much we increase, we always find another level to look for. So what is this cause that doesn't allow us to settle with what we have or have gotten with the hard work that we've put in?
We're looking for the total satisfaction, which it's not there.
Yeah, okay, so we're looking for satisfaction, which doesn't in its nature have any kind of ending. So therefore, there is no sense of stopping. There's no, I don't know where's the stopping point, because if you gain so much, there's always +1, right, on top of that. So suppose that you're of a certain profession, and you get your satisfaction from the intellectual stimulation, okay? Or someone that's in the works of psychology, they're there to counsel another individual, so they relate to their emotional. They're very strong and solid in their emotions, they try to help another person. Or that you're a sports coach that trains someone the physical. So we've got the physical, we've got the mental, and we've got the intellectual. And what are they all resting on? Who is that one that says, I know what I know. I know how to counsel you. I know how to write code. I know how to train you. What is all of this knowledge that we're speaking of resting on? That I that is making that claim. So there is an I upon which the physical presence is resting on, the mind's resting on, and the intellectual is resting on. Now, we've already established that no matter how much we fill the physical, mental, intellectual from Sakama Bhakti, we always want more, implying that it is resting on a foundation which is shaky, an unresolved I foundation. In other words, this I has not been addressed. And as long as it doesn't get addressed, then no matter how much I fill this PMI, then owning to something that is prior to it, I'm still not going to find any satisfaction in this, because it is always moving. It's always shaking on a shaky foundation. The shaky I has not been resolved. For that reason, we cannot find happiness. So then what happens is the owning to the Sakama Bhakta, seeing that I can't get any of satisfaction from material world, then they turn to nishkama bhakti. Nishkama means Ishvara. That means I start to look for Ishvara. And this is the beginning, slow beginning of what we call a jijnatsu. Jijnatsu is one who is only interested in seeking God, owning to the constant disappointments of sakama bhakti. Now please understand, very important, to go from sakama to nishkama is actually a long process. It takes a long time and it is not overnight. In fact, if a child, for example, falls down and a parent says, I told you that you will fall down, the child will then repeat the same behavior. Why? Because the child's still okay. They still have strength to keep going. So only when the child falls and the strength is so discouraging, then they start to listen to that advice of the mom and dad. In the same way, that is so hard. That is why it's so hard to actually have someone stay in the environment of Vedanta, because the sakama, they're still going through sakama bhakti, and the falling is on and on and on, and then slowly there's this humbling transference to nishkama bhakti. It takes a long time. Okay, so the reason we're saying this is don't be discouraged if there is kind of like partial interest in God and still a little bit of interest in the world. This takes natural course of events, so we have to slowly exhaust that karma. Sorrow equals misunderstood I, and cheerfulness equals understood I. What does this mean? Sorrow equals misunderstood I, but no matter how much material gain I get, it is still sorrow because it is a misunderstood I. Whereas cheerfulness equals understood I, and no matter how sorrowful the world may appear, cheerfulness still continues because it is on that one who is firm. Nishta jnanam, firm knowledge. For example, we all know the snake and the rope. We know if I've understood and ascertained the nature of that rope, there's no misunderstandings there. What am I saying? Reality as it is. No chance for fear, no chance for sorrow. Suppose it's a really pretty rope. And because it is beautiful, because nature, the total Ishvara is beautiful. So therefore, if I look at that beautiful rope, representative for Ishvara, if I don't have any superimpositions over it, then what's going to happen? Cheerfulness. Can't help it. Innocent cheerfulness. Whereas if I misunderstand that rope, I don't know its nature, I don't know its essence, then what's going to happen? The mind's going to fill in the blanks with something that closely resembles the rope. In this case, a very mean and a very slithery snake. And the snake is going to induce genuine fear. Genuine, it's going to be real. And not only is the person going to react according to that fear or sorrow, but then they will then put that to the environment, influencing others also. So we can see what happens when we're resting on this unresolved I, what kind of problems it starts to create for not only for ourselves but for everyone.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be a fearful projection though. I mean, that projection, that superimposition of the snake on the rope sort of implies a fearful thing. But I think you can also get it where the superimposition can actually appear to be a cheerful thing to start off with. But then as you actually head into it, it changes to something else.
Yeah, for example, if a man looks at a club and he projects a lot of cheerfulness there, then we know what's going to happen. He's going to go in an off track. Right? So even if I project cheerfulness on that which doesn't deserve to have so much cheerfulness, that is as equal as projecting fear. right? Because you know what the problems are later. Then she wants to leave me, and now I experience fear. So it's just delayed. It's delayed fear. The point is, if reality is not aligned, if my vision is not aligned with reality, it's going to be sorrow one way or the other. If not immediate, it's going to happen down the road. And this nishkama bhakta is devotee, attempting to know, as a result of this recognition, only one single beautiful statement, at least I find it beautiful: know thyself. Know yourself, know this Atman. Who is this self? So then this nishkama bhakta starts to then, who am I? Right? In different ways, of course. And this knowing thyself is equivalent to jijnatsuhu. Jijnatsuhu means one who is only interested in looking at or knowing God. And what does this jijnatsuhu strive for? What do they look for? 29. Jara marana mokshaya. Together. Mam ashritya yatanti ye te brahma tadviduh kritsnam Adhyātman karma chakilam. So this jijnatsu bhakta question was, what do they strive for as a result of this recognition? And then Krishna says, jara marana mokshaya. They strive for moksha. Moksha is freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from? Answer, one word? Samsara, correct. So as a result of seeing this constant disappointment and that I'm never getting exactly what I want, then I start to look less towards worldly things, not putting them down, please understand, only putting higher priority on Ishvara. And therefore I start to look for freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from limitation, sense of limitation. That's what samsara is. It makes us feel limited. What is limited? Body, mind, intellect. Body, mind, intellect. They're always limited. So this means if you ever sense a sense of limitation in yourself, what does that mean? With one of those three personalities, either the body, the mind, or the intellect. Yeah. So the question is now, what are the two biggest frightening aspects of samsara, universal for all people, or unavoidable facts of life? Death and? Huh? Old age. Perfect. How do you know? It's good. Everyone at some level or another is afraid of these two. You know, it's very easy to say while we're young and healthy, oh, I'm not afraid of death. But let's be honest. You know, in those last moments, there's going to be some form of uncertainty, fear. It's like this. Okay. Did you ever go skydiving? Okay, it's probably an inappropriate question. Okay, if you ever went skydiving, I remember I went to skydiving, and me and my friends were going to the airport, and he was totally scared. But I was like, no, it's no problem. You know, I can hardly wait. It's no problem. It was only when I was in the plane and when the door opened, like those few last moments, only then the reality hits you. And then we feel that fear a little bit. The good thing about it is they push you before you have any time to fear more. Okay. Or even a relationship when two partners are thinking of sort of splitting, and there's sort of talk about it, you know, it's not a big deal, but they sort of like, well, you know, maybe we should be together, it's no problem. And when the reality comes close, it actually starts to happen, right? It's actually decided upon. That's when the fear, uncertainty kicks in. In those last few moments, old age. If we're not afraid of death, and maybe there are some who are not afraid of death, but old age is another aspect of unavoidable aspect of samsara. Talking excessively about the past. You know, like those World War II veterans, you know, like 20 badges talking about my, you know, time of being a corporal, an admiral, a general, how many people I've shot, how much I've knifed, how much I've sniped, all of this stuff. And nobody wants to listen to that. So what happens in old age? We feel rejected. So we're trying to share, our young age, because sharing young age makes us feel, young. Like, yeah, this is what I did. I've got some accomplishments. But no one wants to hear that. So then this problem of rejection comes in. So now Krishna continues, for this freedom, that is from death and old age, mam ashritya yatanti ye. So for this freedom, very few work for this immortality by taking shelter in. If you're working for immortality, who are you taking shelter in? In me, says Krishna, in Ishvara. In other words, they seek my grace. So follow the logic here. Rare few work for immortality. In other words, what are they working for? Freedom from death and old age. Because immortality is opposite of death and old age. Follow? So to seek freedom from death and old age is to seek freedom from matter. Why? Okay, what is old age and death? Decay of matter. So in other words, to say I'm seeking freedom from death and old age, I'm actually seeking freedom from matter. Because it is matter that decays, that which will be subject to death and old age. Now, to seek freedom from matter, what are you actually seeking freedom from? What do we say about matter? It decays. For something to decay, it needs what? Time. In other words, to seek freedom from matter, I'm actually seeking freedom from time. Why? Because time is responsible for the decay of matter. So what do we just establish here? Matter and time are in the one same order of reality. Because it is time that decays the matter, and matter decays because of time. Okay, what is this one order of reality that we're speaking of? Apara prakriti. So what are we actually seeking freedom from? Apara prakriti. So logic goes like this. I'm seeking freedom from death and old age because I'm actually seeking freedom from matter. Because it's matter that decays. But I'm actually seeking freedom from matter because I'm seeking freedom from time. So therefore, matter and time are in the same order of reality called apara prakriti. Therefore, to seek freedom from death and old age is to seek freedom from apara prakriti. So what do we just establish? Then now nature has to be other than that which we're seeking freedom from. It can't be therefore apara prakriti. Otherwise we wouldn't be seeking freedom from apara prakriti. So we just established that your nature cannot be then matter. Krishna is communicating that rare few are seeking other than apara prakriti. Now, how many other thans are there? Huh?
No, just one.
Just one.
Oh.
Which is? Now, okay, question. Why is there only one? There's another reason for this. Many apara prakritis, one para prakriti. In other words, the many have to rest on the one for the many to be validated. Just like a movie screen, owning to the one same movie screen, I can tell the difference between many movies in the past, the present, and the future. See, we have this thread of continuity in our life. And not only that, but also to history. We have this sense of, well, there was a continuity of this world. Why? Because the world, it's resting on, the world being apara prakriti, resting on this unmoving, unchanging substratum called para prakriti. Thus, it is only one. And not only is it one because of that, but also because in our own experience, we can recall as many states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleeps as you can remember. How many times have you slept? Tons. How many times have you dreamt? Tons. The fact that we can say that and confirm that implies that every one of those three states, avastatraya, sakshi, remember the tattva bodha? Avastatraya? All of those three states are resting on that one same substratum, para-prakriti. So therefore, few nishkama bhaktas, that means the devotees of Ishvara, of God, over time will know fully what God is. Over time, not immediately overnight. And what is the full knowledge of God? Two aspects, para and apara prakriti. However, Krishna does not use these two words. That's why you don't see them here. Instead, he introduces three new technical words, and they are important. And he also knows that when he says these words, Arjuna is not going to know them. So what's going to happen? Curiosity is going to spark. No wonder he's doing at the end of chapter 7, which means what? Arjuna wants to come back to chapter 8. Right? So the first word that Krishna says is Brahma. The second word is karma. And the third word is Adhyātman. So what is now Arjuna going to say immediately to Krishna? What is Brahma? What is karma? What is Adhyātman? Okay, why should Arjuna know this? Because a jnani is privileged to not only having assimilated these three words that we just called out, but also fully appreciating the depth of their meaning. Having taken refuge in me, Ishvara, those who make effort for freedom from old age and death, they know that Brahman wholly as themselves. And they also know karma in its entirety. They know Brahman wholly as themselves. That's the important part here. Now, next verse, Krishna is going to introduce three more technical words. Sadhi bhutati daivam mam, sadhi yajnam chaye viduhu, prayana kale pichamam, te vidur yukta chetasaha. Krishna is going to introduce three more significant words, and they are Adhi Bhutam, Adhi Daivam, Adhi Yajnam. Arjuna wants to know 6 words. What are they? Brahman, Karma, Adhyātman, Adhi Bhutam, Adhi Daivam, Adhi Yajnam. So for now, just look at these 6 words to give you some principle of what they mean. There are 6 more points of views of looking at what does reality consist of? 2 principles, para, apara, prakriti. Therefore, they give us more depth, more knowledge, more understanding of the whole reality by understanding these 6 words. Then Krishna continues and says, prayana kale api cha mam. Not only are these 6 new words known to the wise person, but also the wise person remembers them at the time of death. So now Arjuna wants to know immediately one more question. The fact that Krishna said that, what's Arjuna now thinking? Then what is the significance of these words or this knowledge before death? What is the significance of Ishvara before death? What is the significance of remembering God before death? Because remember, these 6 words represent the whole reality. The whole reality equals Ishvara. Therefore, how do I actually remember God before death when in reality the last thing that comes to a person's mind before the body is about to die is God? Why is that? I'll give you an example. Right now, how many things do you have going on in your life? it always seems that any moment, every day, it seems important, right? It holds like something like, yeah, this is important. Today is as important as yesterday. Do you think this is going to change in 20, 30, 40 years? No. Because by then, our children will have grown up. They would have had some interests that we would have known about. We would have known people that we also know closer. So they would have been now on our minds even more. So imagine right now, you discovered that we're all going to die in 5 minutes. Put it this way, 5 minutes? Well, wait a minute. I've got to give my bank details to my parents. I've got to, tell my wife, tell my children that I'm going. Yeah, they were all going. I've got to pay the bills.
Life insurance.
Well, if we're all going, why do you have to pay the bills?
Yeah, but think about it this way. Suppose they follow Dharma and they do not like to shortcut or not pay someone. Suppose they made a promise to someone and now they're going to go. So what's going to happen instantly? I'm going to start thinking about that person. You see how samsara tricks us? Even in the last moment, even if I'm trying to be good, my mind goes to that which I want to sincerely address. In other words, my mind goes back to what? Apara prakriti, therefore next birth, back into the world. That's what I mean by the importance of knowing how to die and the kind of thoughts that we need before death. Krishna then asks, who are those who remember me before death? And he says, yukta chetasaha, those of the disciplined mind. Nishkama bhaktas. Think about it. We started today with this. If at some point in your life you went from this to that, then it is likely we will stick with Nishkama Bhakti. So this means when death comes, I don't have to worry about my mind going back into worldly things. Because I've been habituated, I've been trained through my own power, through my own repetition, to think of nothing but abiding in the self or thinking of God. Simple power of repetition causes us to abide in that which we have constantly repeated as our sadhana. So that's why it says one of disciplined mind or nishkama bhakta. It is very, very hard to think about God when the person has been cherishing most of their life sakama bhakti, worldly objects. Even if they were sincere, like saving the world, they're thinking, oh, I wish I could have done more. But the point is, I'm still thinking about samsara, I'm thinking about mithya. Brahman is the only reality. Thus ends the 7th chapter called Jnana Yoga, having the topic of direct and indirect knowledge, which is in the form of a dialogue between Shri Krishna and Arjuna, which is the essence of the Upanishads, whose subject matter is both the knowledge of Brahman and yoga. Summary of the whole Gita up to chapter 12. Chapter 2 to 6 deals with 3 topics. The first is Jiva Svarupam. That means what is the essence and the nature of the individual. And we have established that the nature of the individual is neither the perishable body, not that. The body that's listening, it's not that. Neither is it the changing mind. The mind that's listening, it's not that either. What's the nature of the individual? Changeless consciousness, Atman. The consciousness because of which that mind of yours is now awared by these thoughts, by these experiences in this room. So this changeless consciousness is one and the same for every single individual. You don't have a separate consciousness and mine's different. Just like the screen, remember? One screen, many characters, all pervaded by what? The one same screen. Past, present, and the future. Not just right now, in this age, but also in the eternal past, endless, non-stop future, but also in the present. One same consciousness that you are. The second topic, which chapter 2 to 6 talks about, is Jiva Prayatanam. This means the role of individual efforts. What role do you play as a person in having individual effort, in having a sense of I can do something with my own effort, with my own mind? Krishna warns us actually the pitfall of falling into a fatalistic approach of life. Fatalistic means I think that everything is already predestined. We are all puppets. We have no control. Everything is already pre-programmed. We all came here with our karma, and we're just playing back a script which has already been written by some god, and we're all just like, have to take the hit of life for everything that happens. This has to be released as soon as possible. He says that never take this empowering view of life. As soon as it starts, like this especially starts when nothing is working in life. When everything is working in life, I don't even think about free will. I don't even think about, how everything is predestined. I only think about that when things are not turning out as I want them to be. Krishna says, take charge of your life. Take charge. Focus and take charge. Because that is a human prerogative, privilege. You cannot say, no, Ishvara has placed a date on the 25th of August, I'm going to suddenly change from meat eating to vegetarian. It doesn't work. This is wrong thinking. Who came to that decision? You did. How? By certain conclusions on the basis of what I am trying to achieve. Nobody forced me to. So therefore, Jiva indeed plays a role in his or her life. This is your privilege as a human being. You can come or you don't have to come. That is up to you. But remember this, whatever decision you take, there are consequences. So we ask ourselves, is the decision that I'm taking going to lead to positive consequences, which I will gladly say in 1 year, I am so lucky, thank you? Or is it going to lead to consequences in 1 year, which I would then look back in my life 1 year before and say, I wish I'd changed my mind. I wish I went to a different way. Think about that. So therefore, the decisions you're taking now, in 1 year, are they going to give you consequences that you would then look back and say, I am so grateful for having imposed that action? If not, adjust the action. And the third topic that Krishna talks about is karma yoga. So this is a very important spiritual sadhana because it brings God into our life, even in the most mundane actions. At work, on the road, cleaning. So it's a very important sadhana. I'll tell you why. Because here's what happens. Suppose we get this knowledge, and then we start to say, I am so lucky that I am exposed to this knowledge. I am getting it fast. You see what's happening? There's an individual who is claiming ownership and pride of being exposed to Vedanta. So in other words, yes, the person is right. You are lucky. But the point is, as long as I keep saying I am lucky, I am getting it. I cannot believe I found the highest knowledge. What are you doing simultaneously? You're separating yourself out of the whole, of the total. In other words, what is karma yoga? Constantly surrendering all of my actions, all of my thoughts, called prasada buddhi, onto Ishvara. Why? It exhausts this person who tries to stay alive, tries to stay independent of the whole. This is called ahamkara. This ahamkara has to completely dissolve, so there is no sense of, I am lucky, I am doing this. I'm so glad to be here. That has to go. Because why? whole means we're all individuals, all of the one same whole, which Ishvara is working through. So who is there to take ownership when there is only one? Next, chapter 7 to 12, Krishna talks about Ishvara Swarupam, the nature of God. Krishna also talks about Ishvara Anugraha. Anugraha means what role does Ishvara's laws and orders play when you follow the scriptures? I'll say that again. What role does God play, or God's laws and orders play, when you follow the scriptures? What are scriptures? Injunctions, principles of the whole, of Ishvara. So now the question is, what is the consequence of following the Shastra? In other words, what is Shastra doing? Telling us how to live in harmony with the whole, because Ishvara is the whole. So therefore, if I follow the Shastra, then I'm privileged to certain results. Those results is what we call Ishvara's grace, God's grace. So therefore, how do we get God's grace? By following that work, which when followed, I am in harmony, in alignment with the whole. That result, that enjoyment which the individual gains as a result of following the Shastra, living with the whole, we call that God's grace. In other words, receiving God's grace. How? Through bhakti, through devotion. Person becomes what they think about most of the time. I'll change that. Mind becomes what it thinks about most of the time. In other words, if the mind's constantly thinking its focus is on God, on Ishvara, what's the person going to become? That which the mind is focused on. In other words, this is what we call merging with Ishvara, where the I dissolves. So therefore, train the mind to think of, devote to Ishvara as often as possible. And the third topic between chapters 7 and 12 is Ishvara Dhyanam, meditating on Ishvara, on God, on Bhagavan. Now we begin chapter 7, the whole chapter summary. So right from the first verse, Krishna says, I'm going to give you both knowledge and the nature of Ishvara. And we call this Ishvara Swarupam Jnanam. That means the knowledge of the nature of Ishvara. And he divides knowledge into two categories. Jnanam. What is Jnanam? Jnanam equals indirect knowledge. What's the Sanskrit word for this? Paroksha Jnanam. Jnanam equals Saguna Ishvaraha. Knowledge of God as form. Jnanam equals intellectual knowledge. I've heard this. I now know. It's still intellectual. Paroksha Jnanam. That means it's indirect knowledge. What does indirect mean? Simple. If you're knowing about Rama, for example, who are you actually knowing about? Ishvara. So in other words, Rama serves as a middleman to know about Ishvara, the formless. But I can only focus on Rama because my mind is gross. Therefore, I can only relate to the gross. Therefore, I need Jnanam first. You cannot go to Vijnana, direct knowledge. You first need to relate to something that we can see, that we can hear. That's why we have this symbolism in different religions. So therefore, we first start with Jnanam. Again, summary. Jnanam equals Saguna Ishvaraha equals indirect knowledge equals Paroksha Jnanam equals knowledge of God as form. Next category, Vijnanam. Vijnanam equals direct knowledge. Sanskrit word, Aparoksha Jnanam. Nirguna Ishvaraha. That means God without attributes, without characteristics, formless. equals directly assimilated knowledge. I've embodied it. It's as close to me as your own body, if even closer. You've integrated it. So jnanam equals paroksha, vijnanam equals aparoksha. Jnanam equals saguna, that means God with triguna, ha. Vijnanam equals nirguna ishwaraha, that means Ishwara without guna. And he says, Arjuna, or if you're female, we'll say Draupadi, or Subhadra, second wife, right? I will give you knowledge of both, says Krishna. Next, Krishna glorifies this knowledge. In other words, he says, do not take this knowledge for granted. Because even to come and to be interested in the highest knowledge that's meant to take one out of samsara, that takes lifetimes. Therefore, don't take this as a joke. Take this seriously. It literally takes lifetimes of entanglements, of trying this, trying that, different schools, to come to that knowledge which finally frees us completely. So therefore, don't look at this as a side hobby. Embrace it fully in your life. If I said this now and the person who's listening now gets proud and says, wow, I'm so lucky to be here. See that problem? So if you felt like that while I was saying this, what do? What's the solution? Thank you, Lord. Do not own the results. Verse 4 to 12, the main topic is Ishvara Svarupam. That means the nature of God. Question, what is God? 100% correct. Okay? The reason I failed all is because we can all start generalizing every single question and then we can easily get away with it. But it doesn't work like that in Vedanta. We need to be specific in the context of the chapter, not something we've heard like 2 months ago. Always be specific with the chapter. So God is one principle consisting of two aspects, para and apara prakriti, the lower nature and the higher nature. In pure English, spirit and matter. And when I say spirit, I'm not talking about form spirits, like I see spirits. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about matterless consciousness, that kind of spirit. So yes, we do use the word spirit in Vedanta, but when I say spirit, what am I talking about? Para prakriti. Okay, well, while we're on the topic of spirit and matter, what commonalities does both spirit and matter share? Both para and apara share. There's a commonality. They are both beginningless, anadi. In other words, consciousness was never created, but also matter was never created. In fact, you've already heard in science the law of conservation of energy. Nothing in the universe ever gets either created nor destroyed. Therefore, they are both as they are. There's no more matter than there already is. There's no less consciousness or more consciousness than there already is. So yes, we keep saying that matter is changing, but there is equal amount of matter in the past, present, and the future. In Sanskrit, both are anadi, chetana tattvam, anadi, and beginningless, chetana consciousness principle, and anadi, achetana tattvam, beginningless inert principle, which is what? Matter. So anadi, chetana tattvam, anadi, achetana tattvam. What is another word for anadi, chetana tattvam? Para prakriti. Remember, chetana tattva means consciousness principle. What is consciousness principle? Para prakriti. What is another word for para prakriti? Nirguna ishwaraha. Consciousness has no properties. Nimitta karanam. What is nimitta karanam? We talked about this a few sessions ago. intelligent cause, the efficient cause of the universe. Next, Anadi Achetana Tattvam equals that which is inert, Apara Prakriti equals Saguna equals, starts with M, Maya equals Upadana Karanam. What is Upadana Karanam? The material cause that describes Maya, that describes Apara Prakriti. Is it valid to say, when did God come?
Sorry?
Hey, when did God come? What is your reply?
God was always there.
Yeah.
God never came, no God.
Is that a correct understanding if I ask you that question?
He's not.
Yeah. When did God come? He didn't come. He always is. In the past, present, and future, and also out of time. So therefore, to ask, when did he come, that's a false thinking. That's an incorrect understanding of Ishvara. Okay, next. How does Krishna not present God? Answer, he does not present him, capital him, as a creator who is creating and dumping. Now, how does Krishna present God? Answer, Ishwaraha Jagat Upadana Karanam. So therefore, Ishvara is the cause of the material world. So what was the question? How does Krishna present God? That one who is the cause of the material world. Maya also, because Ishvara includes Maya. That is the lower aspect of it. Ishvara evolves into the world as the world without Ishvara undergoing any changes. Because now you're going to say, okay, so what is there's evil in this world? Does that mean that God has now evolved into evil? No. So Ishvara evolves as the world into the world without Ishvara undergoing any changes at all. So therefore, God is the cause, and what is the effect? The Jagat is the effect. This world that we're in, that we're sitting, the carpet you're sitting, the chairs, the pen we're writing, all of this is the effect. Everything we see is the effect of this cause. Is there any separation between cause and effect? So therefore, there is no separation between the world we live in, the world we talk about, the world that we put down, the world that we insult, the world that we judge, and God. Who are we actually judging? Who are we insulting? The cause of the world, God. So now this starts to make us think, am I looking the world as something apart from God, or am I aware that I'm only ever talking about Ishvara? So therefore, if we properly assimilate this knowledge, what should happen is you should have a direct attitudinal change from the world is there to be exploited, to be used for my ends, to the world is indeed divinity itself. Therefore, another name for God is what? The world. God and world are one. So, I'm going to make a statement. The world is God in different configuration. So you're going to ask, what does different configuration mean? Example, what is the cause of ornaments? Yeah, gold ornaments. Yeah, so gold is one substance. And ornaments are many forms. And why do they get to enjoy their name and their form? Why do they get to have the privilege of saying, I am a bangle, I am a ring, I am a necklace, I'm better than you? Why are all ornaments enjoying that privilege of having a sense of existence and talking about their features? Why? Because of the one same gold. So in other words, there is no such thing as ornament substance. Ornament is only what? a reflection of the one same gold. Therefore, if I think negatively about you or something or someone, I'm actually only thinking about myself in that same way, because everything is of the one same substance. And is the ornament, again, separate from the gold? Never. Whenever I'm talking about an ornament, what am I talking about?
Gold.
The gold. You are also an ornament. Of what? Of the same gold. I'm also that same gold. So I'm only talking to myself. That's all we're ever doing. So this starts now to modify our language with close partners, with close family, with how we think about others, because it all comes back to you. See, this is what I mean by work. It's not just about hearing this knowledge and going, oh, this is, that's it, I'm finished. No, this is work, because we're conditioned to think how? We're conditioned to put things down. So therefore, many ornaments in different configurations of what? Of the one same gold. This is called avastha bhedaha. You've heard the avastha means mode, configuration. That means different mode, different configuration. For example, ice, water, vapor. They're what? Avastha, bhedaha. They're different configurations of the what? One same H2O. Therefore, the world is what? Avastha, bhedaha. Are you as a person separate from the world?
No.
There is only one substance here. You. Self. Or the conclusion is, do not look down on the world. Or at least, okay, let's be fair about it. This is not going to happen overnight. So we need to be very awareful. At least one less negative comment from now on. Or at least if it does come out, as it probably will, let's be realistic, then make a promise to yourself to immediately replace it with a polar opposite. See something positive about it. That is your duty to be in this tradition, not just to listen to this. Thus, the world is Vishvarupa Avatara. Avatara means incarnation. Vishvarupa, many forms. So that's what the world is. Tree is one Vishvarupa, Eka Vishvarupa Avatara. Of what? Of the one same substance, Ishvara, God, yourself. In other words, if this is well ascertained, then I start to see the one substance, the one truth, the one absolute in many, many forms, in all forms, especially those ugly ones that we don't like, because those are the hard ones. Next topic, important understanding. We said that if the world is of God, what is Ishvara? Two aspects, para and apara. So if the world is an effect of the cause, and the cause is what? Para and apara, then the world is also para and apara prakriti. Now, next question. If the world that we're living is right now both consciousness and matter, and they're so intertwined, how then do we discriminate one from the other? If they are constantly making love, like Shiva, Shakti, Krishna, Radha, how do I even see? How do I even identify the difference? Because why? To understand the difference between the two means moksha. That's what a jnani is. One who sees. Not separate, but just sees both simultaneously. I know what is consciousness myself, but amidst that I also know unceasingly what is matter. And I know them as one, as myself. So therefore the question poses an inquiry between satyam and mithya. We have done tattva vivekaha, atman satyam, tadanyat sarvam mithya iti. Remember? So in other words, what is the distinction between, how do you distinct reality? How do you do viveka? Atman satyam. That means Atman is the truth. Tadanyat sarva mithya iti. Everything else than that truth is mithya, unreal. Unreal means that which can be falsified. And then he asks the question, Atma kaha sthula sukshma karana sharira vyaktiriktaha. In other words, what is mithya? What is other than the truth? Gross body, subtle body, causal body. Panchakosha tita san. In other words, I am beyond the 5 sheets. Avasthatraya sakshi. I am that sakshi of the 3 states. Waking, dreaming, deep sleep. Satchidananda swarupa san. In other words, the nature of this Atman is described as Satchidananda. I did not say Atman equals Satchidananda. I said Satchidananda describes the nature of Atman. And what is the nature of Atman? What is Satchidananda? Self-evident, aware full existence. That existence which is self-aware of itself. As what? Fullness. Self-evident, aware full existence. Are you self-evident to yourself? Yeah. Do you exist? Just the fact that you say you exist means what? Your nature is Satchidananda. Does anyone have any doubts they exist? If you have a doubt, then you're contradicting yourself, because to be doubting, I still have to exist to know that I'm doubting. So therefore, you are already the truth. This is what we say in Vedanta. From the day you come in, we say you are already, quote, enlightened. We just don't know what enlightenment is, so we try to chase awareness. You're already aware right now, listening to me. So there's nothing to chase. This is literally the highest truth there is, your awareness. That's it. Consciousness. So, what was the original question? How do you discern between para and apara prakriti? We did the tattva bodha method. Now, we do the Bhagavad Gita method. How do I know what is apara prakriti? Whatever I can experience is apara prakriti, matter. Simple. Any doubts about that? Are you experiencing this class right now? Yeah. Apara prakriti. Are you experiencing the coughs? Yeah. Apara prakriti. Are you experiencing thoughts having to go home early? Apara prakriti. Experiencing thoughts of fearing death? Apara prakriti. Are you aware, full of the thought of whether I'm really getting this? Apara prakriti. Are you having a thought of, oh, I'm so liberated? Apara prakriti. Thought of, I'm really smart? Apara prakriti. Thought of, I don't know anything? I don't belong here? Apara prakriti. Thought of, I should be elsewhere? Apara prakriti. Whatever is experienced at any moment in the past, present, and future by anyone in any environment at any time whatsoever, apara prakriti. So therefore, whatever remains is thus para prakriti, consciousness. You say now, well, what about the mind? Is that also apara prakriti? Is that also matter? Because the mind you can't see. It's subtle matter. But we can prove that both mind and is the same order of reality as gross matter. Very easy. A psychiatrist gives you a pill to accentuate your state of mind. So the pill is what? Physical gross matter, right? But it affects what? The subtle mind. Therefore, by the fact that gross matter can affect the subtle mind means what? They are both in the one same order of reality called matter, apara prakriti. One is gross, one is subtle, but they're still matter. We're done apara prakriti now. Is everyone clear? Now, question. Where do you find para prakriti?
No, you don't. Just is. Just is.
Okay. What's the logical fallacy if I try to find para prakriti?
It's somewhere else.
Yeah.
Other than me.
Yeah. So in other words, if I'm chasing truth, if I'm chasing moksha, if I'm chasing liberation, if I'm chasing freedom, what am I saying? I'm trying to objectify consciousness. So therefore, what is para prakriti? The very subject, the very searcher, the I who is searching for that. So what happens in meditation often? This subject tries to go elsewhere and search for something out there. But what is para prakriti? the very meditator, the one who is knowing, has knowledge of the experience of trying to search. And that one is always available to him or herself. That's why we constantly, all day long, go, I had the greatest experience. That means what? You were still there. Oh, I didn't have such a great experience. That means what? You were still there. Oh, I don't know if I want to live. That means what? You're still there in that thought. I want to live. I can't wait till I live even more. That means what? You're still there. So the existence of self never leaves, but the thoughts, the nature of thoughts, matter, which is constantly decaying, is constantly transient from one state to another. So therefore, what is the unreal? What is that which is falsified? Answer: that which is falsified. What does this mean? It's there until it's no longer there. Jumper, I want to sell you this shirt. Very nice shirt. Very good quality. What happens when I turn this into a curtain? It loses its value. Why do we want to buy a shirt or whatever it is? Because it has a certain form, and it means something to my what? To my raga dvesha. The moment I modify that form, then instantly, even though it's still the same substance, it loses its form. Therefore, I falsified mithya, that which I was attracted to. That means apara prakriti. Think about shopping. Nice table, shiny. We all want to buy it, right? Because we can imagine it in our room. Now, what happens when we look to the left or to the right and we see the same table, but it's like rusty and it smells? What do we do? We look at the table that is what? Shiny and fragrance, but they're both of the same substance. This is what we call mithya. Remember, that shiny table at some point will be the rusty table, but we get tricked like this. So therefore, inquire before being fascinated into objects, because we're only inquiring into falsehood. Thus, the observer principle, the sakshi, is para prakriti. Another name for para prakriti, please take note, jivatma. Why did I say jivatma? Because the nature of the jiva is atman. The essence of the jiva is atman. Just like if I say sugar is sweet, this will be equivalent to sugar sweet. So in other words, that which makes sugar sugar is sweetness. In the same way, jivatma, the essence of this jiva is the self, atman. Another name, atman. So therefore, paraprakriti equals atman equals jivatman. Another name, reflected awareness. So whenever we say atman or the self, we're talking about the reflection of the original consciousness. What do I mean by this? Reflected awareness. Here's the sun and here's the moon. The moon is called your mind. So whatever contents are in this mind, when the sun, original consciousness, reflects, what is it going to reflect back? The contents of the mind. So therefore, if this mind is polluted, if it's thinking dirty thoughts, if it's not trained to think holistically, then what's going to get reflected back? Those thoughts which represent the condition of the mind. So now you can start to see the importance of sadhana. What's the point of sadhana? Karma yoga, bhakti yoga. In order to purify the mind like Martin's pure bucket of water, so that when the one same sun, that is Brahman, shines on the mind, what is it reflecting back? Purity. Ramana Maharishi's glory is not in liberation. Liberation is the same for all. We're all already liberated. What is Ramana Maharishi's glory? Why is he so beautiful when you look at his picture? Is it because he's enlightened? No. You can have a fool who is enlightened, or a person that is not very pleasing to be around. What is Rama's glory? Okay, what does enlightenment mean?
Self, knowledge of the self.
Okay, personal. I've ascertained what? The difference between tattva videka, para apara, satya mithya. So what? If you can know that, but what? Are you a pleasant person? So in other words, Ramana's glory is not moksha, it is what? Purity of the mind. Remember, once he had that experience at 16 years old, he didn't go back to school, cricket. He went straight to the cave, 10 years. Did what? Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Absorbed, working on his mind, purifying his mind. So when people look at him and go, wow, that's because he's enlightened. No, that's because the man has worked purifying his mind for years. So therefore, the glory, the beauty, the work comes in purifying the mind. That's where the work comes. That's what separates the one who is, they both have knowledge, but one is just beautiful. You feel peaceful around them. It's all in the mind. How purified is the mind? Okay, I said the question was, what is the contextual difference between Brahman and Paraprakriti? Why did I say contextual? Implying?
Theoretical.
Yeah, okay. That means there's no actual real difference, but there is a difference in the terms of context, which is what we've just been talking about. So here's the answer. A consciousness before creation, we call that Brahman. There's no creation, Brahman. Another name, Paramatma. I did not say Atma, I say Paramatma. Another word, Paramartika. Now, when creation comes, okay, that means physical matter comes, that same consciousness that I just spoke of, that takes a new name. The consciousness doesn't change, but it takes a new name from the aspect of creation. We call that consciousness Paraprakriti. Another name, Atman, equals Jivatma.
But I thought Jivatman was the name of human.
The self of the Jiva.
Jiva.
Yeah.
Jiva was Jivatman.
Yeah.
But that's not
Jiva is
para,
individual.
Paraprakriti then. The Jivatma Paraprakriti?
But Jivatma is Atman. Jivatma is Paraprakriti. Yeah, you're right.
It is.
Yeah. Jivatma, if you're in the context of the truth of that Jiva, then it equals to Paraprakriti. Because you can also use Jivatma for the other side, that is the truth of the Jiva is Atman, but it's ignorance of that. In this case, the truth of that Jiva is Atman, the self, which is Paraprakriti.
So can awareness only be aware of itself after creation?
Okay, if that's the case, then how could it create?
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, it is always aware. That's why the definition is Sat Chit Ananda. This means this chit, this awareness. That means it's self-evidently aware to itself. It's fully aware of itself.
Even before creation.
It always is in its origin. See, here's that. If I say before and after, that immediately negates the term of changeless. So therefore, there is no manifestation or unmanifestation for Satchidananda. As soon as I say Brahman is unmanifest, what's the problem with that? It implies it is also manifest. But that is not describing Brahman, that is describing its power, inherent power called Maya. Therefore, Maya gains manifest, unmanifest, but Brahman remains as it is. You cannot define anything onto Brahman. The only definition we have is Satchidananda. It is existence, it exists, it is. Even now, it is as this, yourself. It is aware, known as the amness, I am. And it is limitless, Ananda. That means there's no limitations. What does Ananda mean? Limitless. It is not two. If I have two, is it still limitless?
No.
No. As soon as you introduce another, then this Ananda is not applicable. Therefore, because now it's competing against something else. That means what? Which one's right? Is it this one or is it this one? Therefore, they're both now limiting each other. 13 to 19 changes topic. Samsara cause and samsara removal. What's samsara karanam? What's the cause of samsara? And how do you remove that samsara? Pariharaha, that means removal. And then Krishna introduces by posing a question. What causes human misery? Anxiety, fear, worry, concern. Do you remember the answer?
Ignorance.
Ignorance of what?
Self.
Of itself. So this means ignorance of para prakriti. Therefore it is what? Only focused on that which decays, on apara prakriti. Therefore Krishna says the cause of every person's suffering, past, present and future, is fascination in apara prakriti. All of our lives were all about objects, money, fame, status, friends, company, being someone. That's all we do. Because of that, we suffer. What are we all looking for? Security and happiness. So we're looking security and happiness in what? What has no inherent, changeless security and happiness. It is changing. It is only for a short while that I get that security and happiness, but as soon as it goes, what do I think? I missed it. So therefore I go and try to get it back. Therefore I suffer. So the whole life becomes about two principles. Yoga, acquisition, and kshema, maintenance. I acquire, I maintain. Also, one more point about apara prakriti. Nothing in the world is 100% perfect. Even gold is 99.99999% perfect. It is never 100%. What is samsara? Trying to find perfection in what?
In imperfect things.
Isn't it true that that's all technology is? Trying to perfect, bigger, better, faster. Trying to what? Come closer to this idea of perfection. Therefore, innovation doesn't stop. It knows no ending. Because I'm looking for perfection in apara prakriti, which is never perfect. Therefore, I do not know when to stop. I do not know when to stop looking for more beauty. There's always more beauty to be perfect. The whole beauty industry is based on this. I want to be perfect. That's never going to happen. And that brings a lot of pain. So then, if there is no perfection, which most of us identify with, we want to be perfect. I want to be the all-knowing, the omniscient, the all-powerful. I want to reach that state of what? Ishvara. But you cannot do that in apara prakriti. In other words, there is only one principle that is perfect. Which one's that? Yeah, remember specifics, please. If I said apara, you have to use the opposite. You can't just go Brahman now. Okay, so therefore, why is it the perfect? What's the definition of para prakriti?
It's changeless. It's permanent.
Yeah, it's full and therefore it's permanently full. So it's never less. So therefore,
Changeless.
it's changeless. Good. So in other words, it doesn't change its full presence, its full isness. It always remains as it always is in the past, present, and future. Thus, I never get less. It always is full. What's the definition of para? What's the nature? Satchidananda. It is limitless. Therefore, the only place where I can truly find perfection is what? Re-identifying with para prakriti, consciousness, yourself. And then Krishna continues and he says, thus look for attachment. Yes, I said the word attachment. Look for dependence and look for security by discovering para prakriti. Why did I say attachment? What's the nature of the mind? I want to cling on to something. You cannot not be attached to it. You will always attach to something. So therefore, learn to be attached. Learn to depend on that which is changeless, full. Yeah, re-identify your mind on that which is full, which is never incomplete, which is always perfect. Although, despite that, look for, which we're all good at already, fun, entertainment, where? In para or apara? Can you find entertainment in the worldly aspect, in the para? What would that look like? Oh, I'm aware. Jeez, I exist. Huh? What are we doing in the world? We're trying to do everything other than to exist. Because it's obvious you exist. So no one has to tell you, hey, you exist. Did you know that you exist? Did your mother ever tell you you exist? Why? Because it's so obvious that I exist. And because it's so obvious, I miss it. And therefore, then I end up chasing it for the rest of my life as some other object. So therefore, find your security, entertainment, your hobbies in apara prakriti gladly, but never depend, never attach to apara prakriti. Instead, do that in the aspect of para prakriti. So therefore, there is no need to reject. There is no need to renounce the world. We have a beautiful example. It's not mine, it's Paramarthananda's. You have a chair, and it's a really pretty chair, and it's made out of cardboard. So what do you do with this chair? You can keep it in your corner, decorate the house. You can talk about it, you can enjoy it. You can give it as a gift to friends. So do whatever you want with this cardboard pretty chair, except one thing. What is that? Don't sit on it. In other words, enjoy apara prakriti as much as you wish, but never sit on that whose nature is other than strong, other than permanent, other than solid. Only sit on that which is permanent. That means you don't have to throw the chair out. We don't have to renounce the chair. We don't have to renounce the world. Only know the difference and how to tackle them. Okay, next. What is the remedy for samsara? Answers?
Knowledge.
Excellent. What else?
Devotion.
Karma yoga.
Actually, you just gave me the perfect answers. Okay.
Surrender to the Lord.
Even better. So all of these words are actually now including the answer. I said, what is the remedy for samsara removal? And then Krishna says, surrender unto me. How? By means of bhakti. Bring it together. Surrender unto me by means of bhakti. This is mentioned in verse 14. Now an objection is going to come up. What did I just say? How to get out of samsara? Krishna answers, surrender unto me. How? Through bhakti. Is this going to bring up a doubt? It should. Chapter 4, verse 33, and a few more verses, state, Jnanam is the only way to end samsara. Not one of the ways, the only way. So now how can you say that the way to end samsara is through bhakti when it's pretty clear that the only way to end samsara is by removal of samsara through jnanam? How do you reconcile that?
You can't have bhakti without jnana. And you need bhakti as a way of sustaining the jnana.
Well, you need to be devoted
How?
to practice the knowledge.
Good. Okay, good. So that's going to bring us to the next topic. So when we say the word bhakti, understand this. Bhakti Yoga is not one single sadhana. It is a series of sadhanas. It's a range of sadhanas. So in other words, when I perform the range or series of sadhanas, it all culminates to where? Jnanam. When I've performed bhakti, purify my mind through karma yoga, and so on, then it all comes to that point where I actually now want to start discovering what is it that I am devoting to. This is a natural progress of life for everyone. Once you've devoted enough, curiosity sparks. I want to know deeper. Why? Because you've already fallen in love with that which I'm devoting to. And isn't it not true when you fall in love, you want to get to know it? Right? When we fall in love with each other, then what do? We talk, we want to know, like, I want to know your life. Tell me more. Natural progress. So therefore, Krishna resolves this by saying, Bhakti indeed is the answer to removal of samsara in the aspect of Bhakti culminating, leading to Jnanam. In that aspect, it is definitely the answer to remove samsara.
Because with ignorance, you could have superficial or false bhakti, which wouldn't remove samsara.
Yeah.
True. Then you could have, what is that bhakti called? Two bhaktis you had mentioned?
Sakama
Sakama bhakti and Nishkama
Yeah.
bhakti.
Good. They're both
So then you
bhaktis.
suffer
Yeah.
into the Sakama bhakti
Yeah.
trap.
Oh.
Have the knowledge.
Okay, but
There's one more aspect to this. What is Sakama Bhakti? Dharma, Artha, Kama. In other words, I am still worshipping, God's still on my mind. Remember the three bhaktas, Artha, Artharthi, Jijnatsu? In other words, I think of God in the Artha stage when problems come. I'm still thinking of God. At least it's better than not thinking of God at all. Artharthi, I'm thinking as a form of business transaction. That means it's a lot better than once in a while. But I'm still thinking of God. Jijnatsu, all the time. That's as good as Nishkama Bhakti. So therefore, Sakama Bhakti is incomplete without it naturally leading to Nishkama Bhakti. Sakama is a precursor to Nishkama. We never jump into Nishkama first. We all start from Sakama Bhakti. Therefore, they're both needed to arrive to Nishkama Bhakti, to arrive to full assimilation of Jnanam, to arrive to Moksha, and then through Nididhyasanam.
So when we're talking about this bhakti that we sang,
Yeah.
the three ways to get moksha, we're talking about bhakti, then we should be talking about Nishkama Bhakti.
Indeed. At this stage, Nishkama Bhakti.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
At this stage, only Jijnatsu and Nishkama Bhakti. Yeah. Krishna also reminds us very beautifully that this is a long-term process. So don't think this is an overnight process going from Sakama to Nishkama. We already established that at the beginning. So be patient. Someone said infinite patience is the best way to get through this, this world. Just have patience with yourself. So that means don't expect results overnight. Okay, then between verse 20 to 26, the topic will now ask, what are the two types of bhakti? The answer will be Sakama Bhakti and Nishkama Bhakti. So now we define, what is Sakama Bhakti? Worshipping things for material benefit. Worshipping God for material benefit. In other words, I worship Dharma, I worship Artha, I worship Kama. I'm still worshiping, but it's worship for whom? Me, as a person, the Ahamkara. In the Katha Upanishad, we call this Preyaha. Preyaha, we said, anything that is easy to obtain, material, anything that's easy to create, anything that brings instant satisfaction, enjoyment, that's Preyaha. Very easy to do, doesn't require any intellect, it just offers, yes, and it stimulates the senses, very easy to enjoy. And then Krishna talks about the bright side of Sakama Bhakti. He says, it is not papam, it is not sinful, it is not evil. So therefore, don't feel discouraged or guilty if the person is a Sakama Bhakta. A very simple reason. I have no choice. If I want material, then if you tell me don't, then I'm going to have conflict in myself. So this means I have to keep getting to exhaust that karma. There's no way through it. So there is a certain aspect to being okay if the person is still seeking Sakama Bhakta. You cannot stop a child from hitting the sister. They're going to hit the sister, but they're going to learn slowly. So therefore, be patient once again. So I said Sakama is not sinful. There is a condition. It has to be done or backed by what? Dharma. It has to be backed by ahimsa, non-injury. So this means if I try to use Lord to hurt someone, that's not going to work. And also one more condition is, this is why sometimes we can pray and nothing comes. Do you know why that is? You ever notice that? We can pray, but for a long time nothing comes. Very simple. If there is a hungry man who wants food and someone gives him food, suppose he has a stomach ache, digestion problems, can he accept that food despite it being given? No. So therefore, if there is an obstacle in our life, owning to that obstacle, the result will not come to fruition. It will not come. And then we would go and blame Ishvara. I'm not being listened to. In other words, where's the obstacle? Mind. How do you clear that mind? Sadhana. Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga. Therefore, the more I purify the mind, the quicker I see results coming. Whether it's in the Sakama category or Nishkama category. That's the importance of sadhana. Now, dark side of Sakama Bhakti. We said that you cannot hold on to permanently anything in this world. It's like soap, it slips out eventually. In other words, it leaves a mind in a constant state of disappointment, discouragement, and dissatisfaction. We have a nice example from Swami Dayananda. He uses the Coke example. Imagine drinking a tasty drink with a straw. Now, when we begin drinking, do we enjoy it? Yeah, of course, because it's fresh, it's full in its quantity. But what happens the more you start drinking? The level starts coming down. So the more I consume experience, the more I enjoy the drink, the more I worry, the more there is fear of what? Loss. In other words, even while I'm supposed to enjoy my drink, simultaneously, parallel, there is fear of it expiring, of it coming out, of it disappearing. So this alone is what makes us not ever fully accept what we have. I can't accept you. There's always something more I want to change about you. The more I enjoy you, the more I fear of you going out of my life. Because I'm so dependent on that experience. This is the dark side of Sakama Bhakti, of worshipping material things. Verse 27 to 30, we now spoke about Sakama Bhakti. Next one, Nishkama Bhakti. Krishna says, Nishkama Bhakti is when all devotees' actions, literally all of those actions, breathing, thinking, emoting, everything is for the ultimate highest end, being none other than freedom, moksha. That is it. The only thing Nishkama Bhakti cares about is freedom, liberation. That's it. In other words, this Nishkama Bhakti is interested in what? Discovering Paraprakriti. Clear identity between para and apara. And he or she, more importantly, does not reject money, does not reject the world, except to see it as means to an end. Even money can be a means to an end. How? If there is money in life, then there is no anxiety. Of what? Inquiring. That means when I meditate, I'm not going to be meditating on how I should, work more because I can't support myself. I'm going to have a mind free of anxiety meditation. Therefore, even money itself, for a Nishkama Bhakta, is a means to the ultimate end, moksha. So what else is a Nishkama Bhakta interested in? Coming out of this time aspect, because it's time that causes birth and death. See, that which is out of time, by its nature, has no beginning and end. So therefore, Nishkama Bhakta is interested in what? Going out of this time, this limited space-time principle. And as a result of doing so, through their consistent hard work, what do they eventually discover? Lord in its full knowledge, which is para and apara prakriti. That means that is clear through time for a Nishkama Bhakta. In other words, they totally comprehend, ascertain, apprehend the nature of Ishvara, total Ishvara Jnanam. And then finally, Arjuna poses a question, wants to know 7 things from verse 29 and 30, which are, what is Brahman? What is Karma? What is Adhyātman? What is Adhibhuta? What is Adhidaivam? What is Adhiyajnam? And how to remember God before death. And what is the significance of doing so in those final moments. And therefore, chapter 7 concludes Jnanam Vijnanam Yogaha, that is the topic of indirect and direct knowledge, and the total knowledge of Ishvara, which is Para and Apara Prakriti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.